Hi, and welcome to the RFL show. I'm Brendyn. That is my good friend Emmett right there. I'm our local Bears fan. Emmett is our local Niners fan. And Emmett, there's been a lot of change going on with this Niners roster. And I know it was a lot of different moves, a lot of personal moves, right? So go ahead and give me your rough cut, man. Give me your personal rough cut of how you feel about all of these Niners moves, and just talk to me. How are you feeling here?
I feel very, I don't want to say uneasy. I'm kind of nervous about it. On one hand, I know there's a large outside perception of this is the 49ers rebuild, right? They've gone full rebuild. They're cutting everyone. They're releasing everyone. They're letting everyone go on free agency. And I see it more as a retooling. I know the Eagles have done this a lot. The Chiefs seem to do it every year. And to that point, we didn't really lose anyone from our core. I mean, we did lose Aaron Banks, who was our left guard, but it's our second high profile left guard we've let go, and it's not like he was rated very well either. We did lose Kyle Juszczyk, which hurts. He's been with us since 2017, since Kyle got here, and he obviously was a bedrock player. And then Dre Greenlaw is obviously the other bedrock player that really freaking hurts to see go, because he's the engine that drives our defense. He's our motivator. You could tell, I think he only played like 3 quarters this season because he's come off the Achilles, but you can see the difference of the defense the minute this man stepped on the field. But a lot of the other guys just were kind of high-priced free agents they brought over the last few years and really weren't contributing at the level we were hoping to see. So I think this is more of a retooling kind of time versus a complete rebuild to me. So in that way, I'm kind of excited about to see what's going to come here, who's going to be our next supporting cast or next addition to our core. At the same time, also nervous because we're taking a risk on potential draft players and what they may shape up to be, and younger guys, second-year guys that are going to get more leash here to play and see if they meet the challenge.
Yeah, I think John Lynch too. I mean, he's kind of known for that. Like, hey, you can't keep B or C level type players. Like, once you're up for that at that like current contract, if you're not an A type player, you're out. Like, and we kind of saw that with Debo a little bit, where like at one point he was an A player. He was an A+ player. You know, it's coming up at the end of this contract. I mean, we all saw that lost in step a little bit. You know, like we were watching him this past season and we are like, yeah, this doesn't look like the same explosive Debo. Like, he does not look the same. People were telling jokes like, oh, he's just big now. He's just a big Debo. He got a little like belly on him, whatnot, whatever. Which I don't know, it's whatever. But you kind of tell that he lost a step, and I actually think that John Lynch and Kyle kind of saw that too, even like 2 seasons ago, which might be why they were prompted to draft a Ricky Pearsall last year in like the draft. It's kind of like, hey, like we see the writing on like the wall. Debo might not be here in 2025. So let's go ahead and draft a guy who would replace Debo in 2024. So
yeah, and to your point, I feel like I've mentally suppressed the Debo trade. Debo was easily one of my favorite players. And I mean, there's been a lot of great 49ers to be fans of. I mean, Jerry Rice, I love that guy. Joe Montana's, been amazing, a historical figure. I mean, even guys like, Justin Smith and Patrick Willis and Ronnie Lott. I mean, the list goes on of great 49ers. And I don't know if Debo is in that realm of, player, but on a personal level, I was a receiver in college. I was a bigger body receiver. I was, 5'9", 5'10", 215, 220 receiver. So to see the 49ers draft a guy like that, who had that bully mentality, who was going to run dudes over, like when I saw them finally get that guy and use him in a way, I always felt like I should have been used in college. I really connected with that. It was really amazing to see his career. But, like you said, I feel like it's been a couple of years now, he's really declined in his explosiveness. Now, again, do I know if it's because of age? It could be. I think he's like 29 now, 28. He's a little bit older up there, I guess, in age. But at the same time, I know there's been some swelling rumors that he's struggled with his weight, I saw a report. I don't remember who it was from. I think it was from the San Francisco Gate or the Athletics, one of those two, that reported that his weight had ballooned up to 235 at one point during the season, which is You know, when you're a 5'11", sub 6 foot receiver, that's a lot of weight to try to carry. You know, it's hard to be explosive, you know, which was such a huge component of his game at that weight. And I think we definitely did see it. It didn't really seem like when he would catch the ball, when, you know, that yak really came from his explosiveness. That one step, he's, you know, not explosive like Cordell Patterson, but like explosive paired with his size made arm tackling him almost impossible, especially when you're going against a lot of corners and safeties that are trying to tackle it did this big. It's a huge advantage. It's what made Debo so special. And I think it's kind of just, again, it could be a combination of the age and weight, but hopefully he gets revitalized in Washington. But I did want to touch on something you said about John Lynch and his B players and C players. We've done a video about that before, about the blueprint for building the perfect roster, and it's always come with you retain your A's and you replace your B's and C's. Right, you replace your B's. You upgrade your C's. Right, and a lot of the guys that we lost were B players. Aaron Banks is a B player. Malik Collins, B player. Javon Hargrave, high price, often injured, older. I would argue a B player. Leonard Floyd, great situational pass rusher, B player. Right, at a certain point, you need to replace these guys, and you need to either find it with younger guys you have on the roster, or draft picks you're going to bring in. The only one I will say is maybe an A player is Javarius Ward, Mooney Ward. But that's obviously a different situation. I don't know if everyone, I mean, if you're watching this video, you're probably a 49ers fan. So you do know, but B, you're a Bears fan. I don't know if you know this. You know, his 1-year-old daughter died, you know, this past season. It really, really affected, as it would affect anyone, right? If your 1-year-old daughter dies. And he mentioned, I think in an interview that, you know, every time he'd get on that plane to come back to California, he'd get PTSD about her passing and everything. So obviously his play declined, and obviously he wanted to sign somewhere else. And I can't fault him at all about that. So, but yeah, like I said, it's one of those things where I'm curious to see what moves they make to replace these B and C level players. And it's an exciting time, I still think, to be a 49ers fan, right? They still have the core players. Brock Purdy's still there. Brandon Ayuk is still there. CMC, Trent Williams, Fred Warner, George Kittle, like the guys that are the 49ers are still there.
Yeah, and it seems like Lynch and team has just made a living off like comp picks they've just received from their B type players just leaving for other teams. You know what I mean? In free agency. So, and then we had a video posted last week about, we posted it today, Friday, but we made it last week about TJ West and just how he could be a 5th round target for John Lynch, because they just strike gold in the later rounds. So I'm definitely not surprised about the moves. I think what really was surprising is just like the quantity. Like it seemed like every day is just like player cut from the Niners, player cut from the Niners. Oh, this former player, Niners, Niners player signed with someone else, whatever. I think that was like the headline there, but the moves all make sense. And looking at this now, it looks like the Niners have cap space. The 2025 cap space is around $42 million. 2026 increases obviously up to like 65 roughly, according to over the cap. And I bring that up to kind of pivot us a little bit, because as we know, you guys are going to get a heavy price tag here pretty soon with Brock Purdy on the books. Like his extension is coming up, so it kind of makes sense why they want to move like a Deebo Samuel's contract off the books. Don't want to retain a lot of B-level type players, because you guys will need that cap space for Brock Purdy.
Right. And to that point, it really wasn't a whole lot of a cap space situation issue for the 49ers. I mean, I think we had the highest rollover cap. It was more about the cash spending for the owner, Jed York. He's paid out a lot of money to these guys and signing bonuses over the last, I want to say 2 or 3 years, and really doesn't have much to show for it. It kind of culminated in a 6-11 season, right? A lot of their A players got hurt last year, and the B players never rose to the occasion. So he kind of had to mandate a little bit of, we're going to pull back this spending. We don't want to, throw cash around to all these guys if we're not seeing a return on it. So that I can definitely agree with. I'm sorry, what was the other part of what you were saying? There was something key I wanted to respond to about it. It slipped my mind right now.
maybe the price tag that Brock Purdy will carry.
Yes, obviously, yeah, he's going to come. He's going to get paid. I haven't seen any inclination that they're not going to pay him. Now, they might play a little hardball, which I really hope they don't do. I hope they just sign him because it seems to always be what they do is play hardball with these guys until the end of summer, early fall camp. I just want the deal done. I'm really hoping they're kind of learning from the Eagles and Ramsey. Just pay these guys early and get it out the way. He should get 45, 50 million a year. He's earned it. It's what he's worth. Push the cap hits a little bit further down the line so it doesn't hurt as much. The cap should keep exploding as we've discussed numerous times in different videos. Primarily, I think in a Bengals video about signing T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, which I just saw. They announced they're working on extensions for those guys. Fucking finally. You want to talk about cheap owners. But, yes, that's another thing I wanted to mention of. A lot of these releases, too, is not just, I think, a matter of replacing B and C level players as well. I do want to add this component of, I think we're going to see a philosophical shift in the 49ers. A lot of their offense has been predicated on running 21 personnel, the running back and the fullback Kyle Juszczyk, right? And it seems to me that they're maybe switching to more of a 12 personnel, which allows them to be a little bit more flexible with what they can do in the pass game, a little bit more of a focus away from, Kyle Juszczyk and the run game, which I think is something we did address several times. I think we had a video come out where it was like, I think the thumbnail was called System Failure or something like that, where we addressed that it seemed to be every time Kyle Juszczyk was on the field, we were seeing teams like, I think it came out after the Chiefs game, we were seeing the Chiefs, though, blitz, specifically targeting Kyle Juszczyk because they knew a run was coming, or they knew that there was going to be a flaw in the pass coverage there. So the philosophical switch to 12 personnel also allows them to be more combative against another weakness of theirs, which was man coverage, right? These guys were getting locked up. I think they had the lowest average separation in the league against man coverage. Teams started saying, we're not going to zone against you. We know you guys can't get off man coverage. We're going to lock you guys up. We're going to bring pressure. We're trying to exploit holes in your pass blocking rules, and we're going to get the Purdy and pressure him. And it worked time and time and time again. So again, with the 12 personnel, frees up George Kittle to do more in pass concepts, and he's one of our best separators against man coverage. Hopefully, with Brendyn Ayuk coming back and Ricky Parasol taking that next step, they all should help against man coverage. Juwan Jennings was, again, fantastic against man coverage and in the third down situation. I think this offense is just starting to become more predicated on being able to beat man coverage, exposing teams that are now starting to play more man coverage against them.
Yeah, and I kind of want to throw something out there real quick. As you were chatting, I was looking up some numbers here and stats, whatnot, and he brought up a great point where Kyle was very 21 personnel focused, might be shifting over to like a 12 personnel focus. I know the Niners signed Luke Farrell in free agency this year, 3-year, $20.25 million deal. So you kind of would assume they stepping into that second tight end role, right? That's decent change for tight end, I guess. But let me throw this out to you. Obviously, George Kittle is getting up in age. He's 31. He's set to be free agent next year, 2026, according to Spot Rack. You guys hold the 11th pick this year. Would you be interested in Penn State's tight end Warren this year? Tyler Warren? I'm getting that name right? Tyler Warren? For some reason, I thought it was like some other Warren. Yeah, Tyler. I can't believe I forgot his first name for a second. I mean, he's had luscious hair, you know what I'm saying? I mean, like, how can you forget a face like that and a name like that? But do you think that's outside the scope? And again, I'm thinking about this almost the same way of drafting a Ricky Pearsall a year before Debo is traded, right? They're trying to see like the writing on the wall, maybe. And I'm not suggesting they move on from a George Kittle because he's still playing at a very high level. He can definitely still get like extended for sure. I don't know. Obviously, you're more of a Niners world than I am, so I don't know if you're seeing stuff where like a contract extension is coming or expected for a George Kittle. But I'm just saying he has one more year. He's due to be free agent next year in 2026. he will be 32 by that point next year. Do you think about the future at tight end maybe in the first round of this draft if a Tyler Warren, the best tight end prospect that this year is there?
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of, I feel like, I don't want to say it's the expectation, but that does seem to be the word on the street right now is, hey, Tyler Warren's there at 11. That's the direction they're going to go. Is it the best move? It's hard to argue. He'd probably best player available. Like I think in our recent video we mentioned like Luther Burden, Mike Green, and a tackle. I think the tackle from Missouri. And all of those would be great options, but I think they're one of those things where that's what a fan would do, and as we've seen, this organization never wants to do what fans want to do. Receiver would probably be a little redundant. They just have Ricky Parasol. They want to give more opportunities to Jacob Cowing. Mike Green might be a good pass rusher, but he does have, I won't say a conviction, but a sexual assault accusation, at least, from Virginia, at Southern Virginia, before he transferred to Marshall, which is kind of what the 49ers have been very strongly attempted to stay away from, right? None of the guys they have ever get into issues with the law. Like, they learned early on from Reuben Foster to stay away from those kind of guys. So I'm not sure if that's a guy they're going to want to take a chance on. And then the other one, the right tackle from Missouri. They seem to really just fucking hate addressing their offensive line for whatever reason. So I would be surprised they went that direction. So, I mean, it does kind of leave the option of Tyler Warren. Like you're mentioning, George Kittle is getting up on age. It gives him a chance to eventually supersede George Kittle in that position. He fits with what they're doing. Again, if they're trying to go for more 12 personnel, they want to get their tight ends more involved. They want to get someone else to help block so George is more available. I mean, that's what Farrell's really there for. He's an inline blocking tight end. He should free up George Kittle for more route availability, because right now he's currently having to be kept in to help block for the right tackle who can't, Colt McKivitz, who can't seem to fucking do it on his own more often than not. So Farrell frees him up for that. So again, I really wouldn't be surprised to see Tyler Warren be the pick there at 11. And I think from a player perspective, I think it's great. I mean, he really does seem like George Kittle, the second coming. I mean, the guy just runs through people. He wants to drag him. He loves being violent. He loves the aggressiveness. He loves football, clearly. So I could really see him, especially with a couple years of mentorship under George Kittle, really thrive in that role. Now, again, I don't know how much longer George has. George still is a beast. I mean, we see Travis Kelce playing, he's 34, 35. George is freshly 30, I want to say, going to be 30 this year. He probably has another legitimate 5 years in the bag if the 49ers want to keep him there. So I know his thing is he wants to retire a 49er.
Yeah, he is 31 right now, unless Swarat is wrong. And you hit it right there, because when I first thought of it, like, and obviously like yourself and Niners fans probably talk about this daily, right? But like when you watch, like when I just saw Tyler Warren play in some of his highlights, like just this current draft season, I guess, I was like, yeah, that dude's like George Kittle. Like that dude is George. Like yeah, he can move. He's hyper athletic. I mean, dude's a former high school quarterback, and Penn State used him in Wildcat. He was a Wildcat quarterback running the rock. It's like how many tight ends do that? So he seems to me be like a perfect fit, like a perfect plug and play for the Niners if they do want to move off Kittle. Kittle, of course, is a fan favorite. I'm a fan. I mean,
he's an organization
the Cowboys are like America's team, but Kittle is like America's guy. You know what I mean? Like I think everyone loves George Kittle, and I'm right there with him. He's still a top 3 tight end. Like he's still playing as one too. Like you can make the argument that like Kelce kind of lost a step this past year, right? He is a little bit older than Kittle, but Kittle still he still moves well, still blocks well, aggressive, right? He can do everything that he has been doing for the last 8 years or so.
Yeah. No, I do want to kind of pivot this conversation a little bit if I could just take over here, because I know we're kind of getting to the end of our time and our conversation. But I feel like I would be remiss if we didn't address a elephant in the room about what's caused the 49ers not being in this kind of situation. Because as we have discussed, this is a mass exodus. It might be from just replacing the B-level, C-level players on their team. It could also be the stylistic, philosophic change in the team from the 21 personnel to 12 personnel. But that doesn't ignore the fact of this is a new position for this team because there is no youth depth to replace it, right? You know, when we kind of were letting guys go, I want to say it was probably 2019, 2020, we had a little bit of guys kind of leaving. There was a feeling of, hey, Dre Greenlaw can now step up. Hey, Diamond Lenore can now finally step up as Richard Sherman's walking out the door, right? There was a time where it felt like we had the youth in the room to kind of take that next step. And right now, it doesn't really feel like that. I mean, we have Dominic Pooney, who's our right guard, who can step up. We still have Lenore, who's become a core piece. We have Ricardo Green, who's going to be a second-year corner. We have a couple young guys there, but they're all from this last draft. And I think what's really caused the concern amongst 49ers fans and why there's that lack of depth comes from the Trey Lance trade from 2021, which is now finally coming back to bite them in the ass. You know, that was 3 years of first-round picks they gave up, a couple of second rounds, and I think a third-round pick they gave up, which put such a premium on having to nail guys later in the draft. And those, I think it's 2021, 2022, and even 2023, they walked away from those draft classes with almost no one. I mean, 2022, literally the only guy they think they have on the roster still is Brock Purdy. 2023, they spent the third-round pick on Moody, who's a kicker, and Cameron Latu, who I don't think is on the roster anymore. So they really, really needed those late round picks to hit in those drafts, and they didn't. And that has kind of caused the concern amongst 49er fans right now is there isn't that youth movement that's been bubbling for a couple years in development, now getting a chance to shine. They're now praying that rookies they're drafting this year, guys they need to draft this year, are going to immediately come in and be key contributors. You know, their 5th, 6th round, 7th round picks are going to contribute on this team immediately instead of in a year or two.
I love that you brought that up. As a non-Niners fan, I never would have thought of it that way. How one transaction from years ago can cascade down multiple years now and kind of impact the roster as it stands. That's kind of crazy, but it makes sense. They traded some picks, and caused you to you have to hit at least 80% on your late round picks if you lost some early round picks, right?
The margin of error closes a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe Ryan Poles and John Lynch were hanging out the same ski plays and decided to take a special team player in the middle rounds. I don't know. So we did the same thing by taking a punch in the 4th round last year. And when you spend a mid round pick like that on a special team player, it makes that margin much shorter then too.
Yeah, and I remember specifically I was at a friend's house and I think it was the 2023 draft, and I was so pissed because there was a tackle from BYU who I'd been kind of scouting through the PFF mock draft simulator, and I went and watched him this tape, and I liked him. I thought he was good. He could be a future contributor, and I think the Colts ended up taking him, but the Colts took him 3 picks after we selected Jake Moody at the end of the 3rd round. And I remember being so fucking pissed at that moment because I was like, he was right there. The guy I've been scouting, the guy seemed like the perfect fit for this offense at right tackle, would have been an upgrade, would have had a chance to start now. Didn't take him. We took a kicker instead because of the previous pick we took Cameron Latu, who I don't think ever really suited up for us. He was, by all measures, a terrible pick. I mean, I don't know what the thought process was when they selected him, but that's a whole other tyrant thing. I think it was Brady Christensen was his name or something like that. Anyway, ended up going to the Colts. And I think he's a starter for them now, actually. But yeah, it's stuff like that where you spent a lot of capital to go up and get this quarterback. He doesn't pan out, and you still don't have those picks. It puts a higher priority on those later 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks to be right, to nail them. And when you spend those picks as frivolously as taking a kicker or a tight end that wasn't good in college, the Campbell out of Alabama he wasn't some monster for them in Alabama. He had no potential. They took him in the 3rd round. He was expecting, I think, a 6th round pick was the pre-draft expectations for him. that's what kind of happens. I mean, we're seeing the results of it. As you're losing these B and C players, you don't have anyone in the room to replace them, right? And you don't want to spend the money on more Band-Aids. You now have, I mean, it puts an immense amount of pressure on this 2025 draft class for every single guy to be an impact player. And I mean, it's not realistically, and I don't think it's ever happened in the history of the draft where every single pick was an impact player, but that's kind of what the 49ers are at now if they want to be competitive going into the season.
Yeah, and I'm eager to see how they, who they draft this year, what their strategy is like. Do they go after a Tyler Warren, or finally listen to Niners fans and invest in that tackle spot? But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So
yeah, and I will say just one more argument for Warren. If you look at their offseason additions, the few guys they have signed, they've all been key identifiable weaknesses for the 49ers. The 49ers have had one of the worst special team units under Kyle Shanahan since he's been there. And it really felt like it culminated last year into being the worst group in the... I mean, there are literally games we lost because of the special team unit. You gave up a 50-yard kick return, which put the opposing team in field range. It goes to Rams. There was touchdowns they gave up, blocked field goals to win games that they gave up. And if you look at their additions, they've signed Richie Grant, who's a good special teams player. They signed Demarcus Robinson, who's good against man coverage, as we've already discussed. Luke Farrell should open up George Kittle to beat man coverage, another issue we've discussed. Luke Guilford is an amazing special teams player. There was a receiver they signed who I'm trying to see on my chart here real quick. Oh my God, I don't think they have him listed here on PFF. But there was a receiver for Jacksonville who they signed, who was a multiple-time Pro Bowl returner. They brought in one of the best special team coaches in the league. They brought back Robert Saleh to upgrade their defense because their defense had really fallen off. This whole offseason has been spent at primarily targeting the weaknesses that fans have been very boisterous in pointing as weak areas. The defense, their inability to beat man coverage, their special teams unit. So again, I think that further proves that we might see a Tyler Warren because he does beat man coverage. He allows you to do some other things. And he's a great blocker, frees up George Kittle. So I get that's another vote of confidence in that. And also I think it's a reflection of what we'll probably see in this draft. We'll probably see a defense-heavy draft, a defensive tackle-heavy draft.
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine 12 personnel with Kittle and Warren? My God, dude.
That would be scary. So you would have Warren, Kittle, and then on the perimeter you'd have Ayuk and probably Ricky Parasol. I mean, you would be stupid to line up man coverage. And then you have Chris McCaffrey in the backfield. You would be stupid to line up in man coverage against that offense. So
that would be, man. Yeah, that's. I don't want to get my hopes yet. Hopes up this business because you never know what could happen in some way. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but to throw a wrench in that, that also involves a step in development from Brock Purdy, right? Because Brock Purdy's whole superpower is his intelligence, his ability to process, get the ball out early to guys, in open seams and open holes, throwing to the open area, right? Against man coverage, that's a little different, right? Because it's where the hole is going to be might be a little different if your receiver has to throw in a couple extra steps. The timing might be a little messed up. If the receiver has to work a little bit harder to get off man coverage, right? You might have to hit your guy right out the break, which again, Purdy is fully capable of doing, but the timing might get a little bit messed up still. So we're going to need to see an evolution of Purdy that allows him to better beat man coverage with his throws. So I'm curious to see how that component evolves as well and how that goes in contract negotiations too.
All right, Emmett, let's go ahead. Let's call it wraps there, man. I'm eager to see what the Niners do in the draft season this year. I'm hoping for Warren for y'all. I think that will be fun. Again, I'm Brendyn. This is Emmett. We are the RFL Show. See you in the video.